Yeah, my name is Justin Gray. My Kickstarter is going to be Billy the Kit. It starts today, I guess. And I'm on Catch The Craze. These guys are great. You should tune in every single time, all the time.
What's up, Crazies? Kickstarter fans, indie comic fans, I got something for you. I have indie creators in the blue room. They're ready to talk to you about their Kickstarters. They either launched it or gonna launch. So if you really love indie comics and you want to support the little guy and see them win, well, here's an opportunity to prove it. Put your money where your mouth is. Check this out. I'm done talking. Now it's time for the indies. Let's start it up.
Start it up, y'all. Start it up, y'all. Start it up, start it up, start it up, y'all.
What's up, George? Who do we have on the show today?
What's up, my brother? We have a Mr. Justin Gray on the show. He is the writer of Billy the Kit, which will be on Kickstarter today.
Yes, so let's get it. Catch the Craze podcast. I am your host with the most, the crazy man Vera, and I am with
George the Dreamer Medina. What's up, Playboy?
What up, Chuck?
¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó? How's it going over there?
It's going. So is my wife, she's like, you can't go on with your beard messed up. You can't go. So she says, let me cut it. And then she starts plucking all my whites off my chin. And then she gave me a lopsided trim. Nice. And I was like, I would have just gone on with the Craze as it was. What are you acting up for?
A lopsided trim.
Yeah, because I was sitting at an angle. She blamed it on me. She said, you were sitting at an angle. I was like, really? But then she goes, next time you go on, I said, well, I'm going to be on for 3 hours tonight, so I don't have time. I'm trying to avoid her.
3 hours. Yes.
3 hours, yes.
Yes, indeed. We got a good show. Not a 3-hour show, but we got a very good show today. Yes. We are welcoming another crowdfunding campaign won by Mr. Justin Gray.
Yes.
And he's done work on Jonah Hex.
Yep.
He had a book called Spicy Pulp.
Yep. If
anybody's aware of Mr. Justin Gray's work. So he's got a book called Billy the Kit.
Yes.
And it is on Kickstarter today.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure it's already funded.
He has 185. Yeah. He had 150. So at the time of this recording, there was 185 people waiting for it to launch. And Billy the Kit is 5 issues of full-color action, adventure, horror, kung fu, gunslinging madness in this origin of an epic and unlikely hero. Wow, say that 5 times real fast.
That's right.
Yeah, so Justin Gray was the writer on Jonah Hex, and Spicy Pulp. Let's see. Let's go down. A Ringo Award winner and Eisner-nominated graphic novelist. Freelance writer, self-publisher with experience in comic books, films, video games, and animation. He has written for comics for Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, IDW, Image, and Dynamite, and more. The guy has put in the work.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, he's done work on Jonah Hex, Power Girl, 21 Down, Freedom Fighters, The Resistance.
Yeah.
He's got a great resume, man. I can't wait to speak to him.
Yeah.
And see how it goes. The most, let's see here. Gray's most recent work, Spicy Pulp, has funded each issue in Kickstarter all within 24 hours from launch date.
Well, I can see this one that's going to, number one, the character design of Billy the Kit looks awesome. And I understand why. When I seen how many people were waiting, I could understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the quality looks good. I mean, just from seeing that one piece, it's pretty tight.
Yeah, and big shout out to his artist, Barry McLean Jr., who is the artist on the book. He also uses a Wacom tablet and all Photoshop programs. He can pencil 2 to 3 pages a day and always meets his deadlines. That's nice.
2 to 3 a day, man. You're a beast.
Damn.
Yes, I do want to say that. Yeah, I do want to say that we received the press kit from Inked and Inked Marketing, and we are part of the NSC Live, the Roadshow podcast tour. So just wanted to say that we got all the information courtesy of Inked.
Yes, and you can follow Barry McLean on Facebook at quote unquote Stay Broke. Stay Broke is just go on Facebook, type in Stay Broke,
Yes.
and you can follow him there.
And if you don't know how to do that, just talk to me. I'll give you some tips.
His creator-owned titles, Serial Tags, The Oblivion Chain, and Paper Universes and Dead Flow are on there. So yeah, check that out. I mean, I love this. I love when we have very talented artists and creators on the show. So I look forward to speaking with Justin to discuss his book and how does he do it? How does he find so much success in the crowdfunding game, which is something that's prevalent right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. There was somebody who asked, how do you attract people to back your stuff on crowdfunding? He says he's having a hard time. He's working on getting an artist. So, when that second part, when it says working on getting an artist, it's like, wait, are you doing a campaign and you don't even have the artist? That could be the reason why, but I didn't actually look into it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of cats that are going out there, but there's a lot of cats that are not doing their homework ahead of time. But the more established guys, the ones with name recognition, the ones with a resume like this one, won't have any issues on there because they've already established a foundation and they have a following. When you don't have a following, then you have to start, I would spend the first couple of few months just researching, doing your homework, analyzing crowdfunding campaigns that are going live and look at what they're doing, look at social media and see if how they're promoting. Talk to the people who were successful, see if they'll give you advice.
Yeah. There's got to be all kinds of tricks and hacks to getting your backers. But I think that a lot of it is doing the work and making sure that you are promoting your book before it even launches. Yeah. And even while it's launching, you still have to do promotion. Big shout out to Sin Eater, who was one of our sponsors on the show. They had a very successful Kickstarter campaign. John Simmons is the creator of that book. And, he made over $17,000 on his Kickstarter. He was asking for $6,500. So,
I like to think being a sponsoring our show, got some of those pledges. But that's pretty dope. Again, I think the smart people, even with the name recognition, you're always going to promote it ahead of time. The ones who have that, I mean, just look at this one with Justin. With his partnering with Inked to handle the press releases and all that other stuff. It's a smart move. So I think you have to really look at, number one, what's your budget going into this, because you need some kind of a budget to get the materials going and all that other stuff, whether it's a colorist, an artist, an inker, a writer, whatever. And then you got to look at the time you're going to spend. When you don't have name recognition, you need to spend a lot of time, a couple of hours a day on social media and posting and recommend all you unknowns that are trying to build that recognition. Reach out to every podcaster, every comic book news outlet, and try to get some coverage. You'll get no's from like some of the mainstream podcasters. They won't even consider you because you don't have name recognition. But there's a lot of little guys that'll get you and give you that promotion. So don't be shy about trying. I mean, if you already took the step to go on crowdfunding, it's a tough endeavor as it is. Go out there and promote yourself and talk to the people out there.
Yeah, we had a gentleman on the show called Jason Lennox, and he gave a good tip. Was he had a lot of emails from people he met along the way. He had broken it down between like just followers, fans, media sources, and things like that. So he was very organized about how he handled his business when it came to his emails and sending email blasts, letting people know that I'm going to be putting this out, I'm going to be at this show. And even when he got to the shows, when they were doing conventions at the time, and even now that we're starting to do conventions, it's important to have that. I guess people signing up with emails and things like that, those are valuable assets to have when you're reaching your fan base.
Yes,
because everybody's got an email address.
Everybody.
Mostly.
Like I have email addresses that I don't even use. Like I have a Google email because I needed it, because I have Google Docs and all that other stuff, so I needed it. And because because the YouTube account and all that stuff, so I don't use it. It's just there. So I have some that are just there for a specific purpose, and then I have others that I use for the business.
And that's funny you say that, because that's exactly the reason why you need to collect so many of these emails, because some of the email addresses you will get from some people are email addresses they don't even use.
Yes.
They'll give you that email address because it's an email address they don't use, and rather than say no, I'm not giving you my email address, I'll give you an email address. It's like almost giving a phone number to a guy who she doesn't care if he calls because it's the wrong number anyway. So
Word.
that's why you need to compile these things. The more you have, because it's a numbers game. The more you have, the more the more likely you are. What you've been doing research on some of this stuff, and it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
When it comes to crowdfunding, big shout out to you too for Forbidden.
Yes.
Which was recently funded.
Successfully funded.
It was funded successfully a while ago, but it went beyond the actual goal. So,
yeah, and it was tough, because it was my first time on Indiegogo, my third campaign in total. We've done 2 Kickstarters for Catch The Crazees successfully, and then decided to do Forbidden on Indiegogo, and it was tough. I had to make sure that I was grinding every single day. The great thing about it is 80% of the backers were people I never met. I don't know. So that was a good thing. And hopefully that same group loved the product and want to come on for the second launch in the summer. But yeah, I'm excited. So now it's just about at this stage, we're done with the coloring and we're getting it off to the printer. So I'm hoping to have everything in your hands before the end of the month.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, good. So that's Forbidden. And then at the end of this month, April 29th.
Hold on.
Uh-oh.
In other news.
Okay. I didn't realize we were doing that today. Okay. 29th, April 29th, we will be launching the Kickstarter for the Crazees number 3.
The Crazees number 3.
The third issue of the Crazees will be launched on April 29th, and we will be live that day for the launch.
Yes, we're going to be live, and we're hoping that everybody who supported us on both campaigns, issues 1 and 2, will join us for the live show. It will. It's a tradition of ours to go live during the launch day, and we will be having raffles that day. Cool announcements. It'll be fun, and we're hoping to start the pledges during the live campaign and see if that takes off. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of information about what some of the perks are going to be.
Yep.
And you definitely want to definitely if you haven't yet, sign up for the launch page, so that you are one of the first to, pledge, because it's important that you are one of the first ones, because we're going to have limited edition copies of the book. It's going to be 100 of them. So you definitely, and they're going to be numbered. They're going to be numbered 1 through 100. So you definitely want to be one of the first ones. So if you haven't yet, go to our websites and our Instagram to find out how. The link is on our Instagram page.
And it's also below in the summary.
And it'll be in the summary. So if you are on Instagram, you go to, and I'll give you the Instagram of the Crazees, which is official IG page of the Crazees, only one word. As follow us, and the link will be on there as well. So you can get in tune with the launch page.
Yeah, so that's exciting. That's pretty dope. Issue 3 is completely done. So at the end of the campaign, everything's off to the printers and then into your hands. So, we have a knack. We've been fortunate enough that every campaign we've done, we've gotten everything to you early, earlier than the expected delivery date, which we pride ourselves on, and we want to continue that tradition in everything we do. So we try to be ahead of the curve with everything. We don't want to go into any campaigns waiting for stuff. So that's a good recommend to all of you guys out there. You want to do a campaign, don't start a campaign and you don't have finished pages. I backed something that it ended in November, and I just received an email that they just started lettering. And now, we're in April. So this was in November. So to have to wait 6 months for something that backed, it doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth when it's not ready. So make sure that you get your stuff and you have it ready.
Yeah. The Kickstarter, well, like Sam said, the book is done. The Kickstarter is funding for the printing and all of the other things that we're gonna have for you on the book. So
yes,
the books are going to be printed in 3 kinds of covers. We're going to have a gold cover, we're going to have a silver cover, a hollow foil cover. So that's going to be part of what we are collecting the money for. And we can't wait, man. Can't wait to have it. I know that we'll show you the cover of the book on that show and other stuff. We'll have a bunch of stuff for you. So make sure you tune in April 29th. Have we come on what time did we, like 7, is it, that we're going to be on? From 7 to
7 till 9.
Yeah, I think it's good. Closer, you'll
7 to 9, 7 to 9, man.
7 to 9, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's exciting, man. We're moving along. We're moving along with the crazy. Sam, you're going to be taking over in issue 5 still. What are we thinking here?
Yeah, I'll be taking over issue 5. All goes well, and so I anticipate starting to illustrate issue 5 May 1st. Because issue 4 will be done, and so I'll start issue 5 May 1st, and go from there. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. So we'll see. I won't be coloring it. I will be commissioning a colorist for that series, but I will be illustrating it.
Speaking of coloring, man, the coloring on Forbidden looks amazing.
Off the chain.
Amazing. Very, very nice work. What's the young lady's name?
Barbara.
Barbara.
Yeah.
She did an amazing job coloring the book. Yeah. Really, really did a good job. So yeah, can't wait till you guys see that. Yeah. That's gonna be great. And then the goal is to have the entire book. When do you want to have the entire book by, the Forbidden book?
What do you mean? Oh, Forbidden?
Yeah.
I want to have it for the fall. So right now I'm debating whether or not to do a campaign for issue 2 and then launch the whole collected, and or just the next campaign, just do it for the whole run. So I'm debating on it. So here's a question to you: would you prefer Forbidden to remain on Indiegogo or bring it over to Kickstarter? Which one do you prefer? And especially for those of you who backed me on Indiegogo, would you prefer it to stay there or to go over to Kickstarter? Because right now I'm debating whether or not, because I ran some analytics and it was obvious that Kickstarter is the most recognizable brand of the two, with a bigger audience and a bigger reach. So just want to hear from you guys. What do you think?
Yeah. It's weird. A few months, maybe last year, we did a show where it was like, Kickstarter versus Indiegogo and which one is better. And at the time of the recording of that show, I don't think we had done any one of them. And now that we have, I got to tell you, I feel like there may be pros and cons to both. I lean more towards Kickstarter, to be honest. And at first, I was like scared of Kickstarter, because it's like, if you don't make your money, if you don't make your goal, you don't get the money. But I feel like even with what the stuff we've been talking about, it just seems like Kickstarter is just more user friendly. So like on the back end for us, when we're putting these campaigns together, it seems to be a little harder than it is on Indiegogo. Indiegogo makes it easy. Yep. Indiegogo makes it easy for you to go in there, set up your page, put your stuff up there, launch it.
Yep.
Easy. There's no, we have to see if we, if you're approved or anything like that. There is none of that, right? No. Like from where boom, put it up there. However, when it comes time to pledging, that becomes a little more tedious. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when I was
if you just do a Google search for Kickstarter, you're getting thousands of links. You do a Google search for Indiegogo, is not the same. When you look at some of everything is tracking Kickstarter. There's only a couple of places that track Indiegogo campaigns. And it's a lot. It's the corporation versus the independent store owner, right? Kickstarter is the corporation. Indiegogo is the independent store owner that's comfortable where they are, not looking to make any waves, don't want to create an app, and don't want to, spread their wings and fly. Where Kickstarter is, Apple, and they want to take over the world, and so they have specific criteria and timelines, and but they have a big reach, and everybody tends to use that.
Well, the game changer, I think, is the app.
The app, yeah. The fact that Indiegogo doesn't have an app is crazy.
To me, that it's so easy for me to go, and it's the reason why I've backed so many Kickstarters, because not only is there an app for it, but they don't take your money until after the fact. Right. So you can go, even if you don't have anything in the bank right now, it'll just be, hey, I want to back it. You know what I mean? Like, there is nothing stopping you from. So right. That was my other point. Everything on the back end is difficult on Indiegogo, on Kickstarter, but easy for the consumer, where it's the opposite for Indiegogo. Everything's easy for us on the back end, but for the consumer, it just seems like they have to jump through hoops. They have to give tons of information. Your address has to be given out right from the beginning. Your phone number they're asking for. You don't have an app, so I got to go on a computer, or even if it's on my phone, but I have to go to their website. What's my login? I forgot my login. I don't know what it is. On an app, I'm constantly, I don't even have to log out of this app. I'm constantly logged in. I don't have to log out. So all those things, start adding up to the,
Yes,
and for
Indie.
me, it's.
But I guess that's why it started with Indie, right? They're keeping it simple.
Indiegogo, that's right.
They're staying in their sandbox. But you know what? Everybody has an app. Indiegogo, create an app. Make it easy.
But the other thing with Indiegogo, too, is that your book stays like in demand.
Yes, so you have that option, right? Yeah, you have that option. So I selected that option, and you can pull it out anytime you want. So that's good. But you can only have in demand if you make your goal. Right. So, but I see that our guest is in the waiting room.
Beautiful.
So we're gonna run to a commercial. When we come back, we're gonna bring in Justin Gray. All right, welcome to the Craze in 10 or less. Welcome to the Craze in 10 or less. Welcome to the Craze in 10 or less. That's 10 minutes or under. This is not going according to plan. What the heck is going on? Oh, hell no. Catch the Craze. Catch the Craze. Hello there. Welcome.
What's up, guys?
How's it going?
What's going on, Justin?
Good. What's up with you?
Not much. I'm George. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, George.
I'm Sam, the Crazy Man Vera.
Yeah.
How's it going, buddy? So before we even start, first of all, kudos. I think Billy the Kid looks amazing.
Thank you.
Just by looking at the design, the character design, and we'll go into all that stuff. But just that one promo piece is definitely eye-catching.
Yeah, Barry's great. I can't take any credit for the art, so he does a great job. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's great. He's great. I love the bio on him. He can pencil 2 to 3 pages a day. I was like, that is amazing. That's good for him, man.
Yeah,
so kudos to him for sure.
He's like a machine.
That's
how much of that.
It's definitely impressive. That's for sure. So, we looked at. You have a great resume. You've been around the block, and so why don't you just introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
All right. I'm Justin Gray. I've been writing comics for a long time, since I think I started in 2001, and it was a Wildstorm book called 21 Down that I wrote with Jimmy Palmiotti, and Jesus Says was the artist from Spain, and Paul Mounts was the colorist. And that sort of kicked off my introduction to the world of comics in a way that was, it was almost creator-owned at the time, but it was original property that we had brought to Wildstorm as part of a new initiative. And that was my introduction to both the world of comics and the world of being in the business of mainstream comics.
Yeah.
That's pretty fantastic. So when did you decide that you want to start writing?
When I realized I couldn't draw what I saw in my head. I tried artwork for years when I was a teenager. I would try and do sequential artwork and pinup artwork, and it just never, the images in my head never got through my hand onto the paper. So then I started looking at different ways to sort of do that. So I started writing in high school, and then into college, and then I started fishing around to see if I could find artists to work with. It's still a whole indie thing, and so it's been going on forever. You try and find artists to partner up with you, and you don't have any money, and you don't know they don't have any money, and you see if if you can make a comic out of no money, which 90% of the time doesn't work.
Right.
But I realized once I couldn't draw what I wanted to draw, I realized I had to figure out a way to make it work differently. So
do you remember the first piece that you wrote for yourself and what that was?
I used to write really bad Conan fan fiction.
Nice.
It was like the heavy metal stage, and it was Conan, and it was broadswords and blood and chopping heads off and stuff. And I remember my English teacher in high school was like, somewhere between the kid might have talent or he might need to be locked up somewhere. So that was kind of.
It's funny. I still have the old Conan magazines, the large format ones.
Oh, I love those. Conan. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I have at least a dozen copies.
Yeah, those are fantastic, and it's funny because I know Joe Jusko for years, and every once in a while I go back and I say, I'm like, oh, I forgot that Joe was doing this frontispiece, or Joe did this cover for this thing, and I'm always kind of like, I reach out to him on social media. I'm like, I saw this thing you did. It was great. It probably feels like a million years ago to him, but.
Nice.
I remember the cards, the trading cards he was doing for Marvel back in the days. Those were pretty cool too. So for everybody watching, you're watching Catch the Craze, and we're here with Justin Gray, creator of Billy the Kid. He's got a Kickstarter campaign that's launching. So Justin, take me through that moment when you teamed up with Jimmy Palmiotti, right? You're writing this book, and you're taking it to Wildstorm. What was that like? What was that process like, going into like Wildstorm and going to, this was your first writing gig in comics, you mentioned, right? So how was that whole experience?
It was kind of wild because I had been interning at Marvel Knights, and that ended, and I had stayed in contact with Jimmy, but I had gone back to my old life of working in restaurants. And I remember one night I was in Fridays, and I got a phone call from Jimmy saying, hey, Wildstorm is looking for these projects, and do you want to work on this with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. It sounds good. I didn't really know what it was, and we kind of hashed out the idea, and then I drove down to Brooklyn, and we hung out in his apartment, and we worked out the basic ideas of what was going to be 21 Down. To me, it was kind of a whirlwind. I was caught up between being amazed by it and also being like, yeah, I should be here. This is what I'm here because for a reason, which is a little bit of arrogance that I look back on like, but it was exciting. It was the break that I was looking for after the 3 other breaks that didn't work out, because there's always levels of trying to get towards something, especially it's entertainment or it's multimedia, or people are going to invest however many hundreds of thousands of dollars into things. They don't do it lightly, whether it's film, comics, TV, or whatever. So I was excited, and I was also very naive. I was just kind of like, gung-ho, like nothing could stop me, which is what keeps me going. But it's also like, if I slow down and think about how stupid I am sometimes, I can be a little unnerving. But no, I was very excited. It was a very exciting opportunity to do something, and I realized very early on that I should stop and say, I am lucky, I'm blessed, or however you want to phrase it, to have opportunities that I've had. It's easier to say that now, but yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So from that was your jump off point. Then walk us through that the next steps, like going from attending. I'm sure you attended conventions, trying to pitch your idea, but now you're on the other side of the spectrum. What was that first event like when you have a published book and you're at an event?
I'm not very good with compliments or celebrity. Like, I don't take things very, like, I always feel like the rug is going to be pulled out. Right. Like, I don't want to get too comfortable in me, like, oh, look at me, I'm a star. And that's one of the things I always had. I think that's one of the reasons why I get along with people who have a certain amount of notoriety and fame is because I think it's kind of funny. I don't necessarily think it's something when people take themselves too seriously. I'm kind of like, I don't really want to be around that person because I know that there's just way too many layers to go through to get to who the person is. So I don't really, I mean, I take what I do seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. And my joke is that if I was curing cancer, I'd be the biggest jerk in the world. I'd be like, yeah, I cured cancer. The hell with all you people. But it's comics. All I want to do is entertain people and make people laugh or smile or escape from their day-to-day life, for 15 to an hour and a half. I don't know. So it was weird being on the other side because I was uncomfortable. I was like, people are coming up to me and they're saying things about me that I don't see in myself. So like, I never really thought my signature, like I never thought about signing stuff. The whole time I was trying to get into comics, I never thought about the stage where I would be signing stuff. Because it was just alien to me. It was more about how do I get into comics and I would have these conversations with Jimmy and Jimmy is much more someone who can be in the spotlight, who thrives in the spotlight. He's very quick on his feet and funny. And I always felt like I start to shrink a little bit when the spotlight's too bright on me. So I was like, I just want to do the work. Like, I really honestly don't care about the fame stuff. Like there's so much baggage that comes with being famous. That I just watch it destroy people. I mean, I remember there was a film director I met one night. He had a hit film and it was blown up. And it was kind of like it was something I knew there wasn't any legs to it. I knew just seeing it was like a fun thing that happened. But his arrogance level and his like sort of swagger through Hollywood and going to his hotel room to meet up with him to go out to have dinner, I was like, oh my God, this guy's like, he's like on another planet. And we went out and he was a little bit, I want to say inebriated. And the people it was a restaurant and he was so inebriated, they were kind of like, maybe you should tone it down a little bit. And like, he was so over the top and very aggressive and condescending, and I'm like, this is just a guy working the bottom of an escalator. I'm like, give him a break. Like, you're gonna go up and eat a meal. Like, okay, so you have a movie, and congratulations for all that, and all this stuff's happening. And every time I see something like that, I'm like, I just gotta stay grounded, because at any moment you could be a star, and at any moment you could be in the gutter. So
yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know if that answers the question. I tend to ramble.
No, that's very true. That's very true. Did you so Justin, you've written comics. Have you written anything else like prose? Have you done that kind of work, or has it always been comics?
No, it actually was prose before comics. So if you look at the early 21 Down, I feel bad for Jesus Says, who had to like figure out how to fit artwork inside all those panels. No, I mean, in working with Jimmy, we had worked on a Dead Space animated movie based on a video game. We had worked as part of the short-lived revival of Speed Racer, the animated series. I had written so many pitches and Bibles for TV shows and screenplays and scripts for things. It wasn't always comics. It was, in fact, before it was comics, it was definitely, I had this sort of delusion, and you spend a lot of time as a creative person being delusional. No, I was going to write the next great American novel, or I was going to write something that, was going to be an iconic thing and I think the only benefit of that is I just kept going, like my plowing ahead, almost like a pit bull or a bulldog, just like, I don't care, whatever bad happens, as long as I keep moving forward, something good's going to happen. So yeah, I had written all kinds of things, and I worked on video game stuff. I worked on the Mortal Kombat versus DC, the first video game. And Jimmy and I had done dialogue for the prototype video games this years ago. And, other stuff like ghostwriting stuff for TV and things like that, which obviously I wasn't credited for, but it was a great learning experience. And so, yeah, it wasn't always just comics, but I think that all those things tie together, and I love to do so many different kinds of things. And that's one of the things I like about comics, is that you can do different genres, different styles all the time.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite that you prefer to write? Do you prefer to write, whether it's prose, whether it's comics, whether it's screenwriting? Do you have a preference?
No, it really depends on the mood and the project. I recently was asked by a longtime friend who said, you know, he wanted me to do a 10,000 word prose story. And I was like, wow, I haven't done that in a while. It's kind of like getting back to the gym, or if you haven't written a or whatever. So I was like, all right, you know what? I think I want to try and get back into that. So it's been a little, there's been like baby steps, because you have to get warmed back up again. It's not like,
Sure.
Because this is a lot of writing for me is muscle memory of blocking out time to write every day. So your brain goes, oh, we're writing now, or we're at the gym now, or, you know, we're on work now. So I don't really, I like all of it. And since I've transitioned from being in mainstream to doing Kickstarters and doing stuff myself, I'm writing less in the rigid format of what I used to do for Marvel, DC, and other publishers. And I'm just finding artists and I'm saying, here's what's going to happen in this issue. We just need to hit these points, and I wait for them to draw it, and it comes back to me, and I'm like, all right, now I'm going to rework whatever dialogue I had either in my head or in notes, and then work it around. I mean, like with Barry and Billy the Kid, it started out, I was like, this is very much what I want to do here. And then all of a sudden it was kind of like just a page. Here's page 2, here's page 3, here's page 4, and just go nuts, which is an interesting experience. And it's creatively freeing because it's constantly happening. So it's, instead of going back to something like we used to, you know, you'd have to write an outline 6 months out on Hawkman or something. And then you'd have to like get back into that mindset months later and then stick to the outline. And it felt very much like, it felt like building something that you had a blueprint for that you kind of didn't necessarily feel as much excitement for. Right. With this, it's kind of like we're in the moment, we're creating. Just the other day, I reached out to an artist. I said, I have this story. Are you interested in drawing it? And it's only a short thing. And he read it and he was like, yeah, but the ending needs to change. And I was like, what do you mean the ending? And he's like, I would do this. And he was doing it from the visual standpoint of how he would illustrate it, how he would essentially be the cinematography on it. I was like, I like it. I'd much rather do that. You're right. Like you took my little annoying, cynical personality and went, no, let's do something that changes the whole emotional, ending of it. And I was like, this is what I like about comics. And it doesn't.
That's awesome.
Collaboration. Yeah. It's people putting in. It's like kind of like being in a band.
Right.
You know, when the band gets along, so that's always good.
Yeah. But you know what? That story you just told, I mean, it just shows how free, like you said, you were talking about freedom, how free you are, not just for yourself, but for the people you're working with. You're like, that sounds cool, let's do it. You know, where you weren't like, nope, that's the ending I want. I'm hiring to do the book. You do what I'm hiring you to do. So that's kudos to you. I can't wait to. Is that coming out? I mean, is that something that you're gonna?
That's something I was going to do it myself, and then we both agreed that there was a publisher that we kind of have a bucket list on. So I said, let me reach out to them and see if they're interested, and if not, we'll just do it ourselves. Like I love being in the position of like, does the publisher want it? No, well, let's just do it ourselves, because I know that there are people who are going to want to read it, and I think the system of where there are people who determine based on shareholders or based on monetary gain who are now saying this is what sells, this is not what sells. I think that's being blurred, especially in the last couple of years, where those corporations and those publishing houses have been sort of flailing around and trying to figure out how to meet a demand where the world has changed so much that it's not business as usual. It's not paint by numbers thing. So I'm being optimistic about creating stuff that has a growing audience instead of just sort of people have a habit, right, buying and reading stuff.
Yeah. No, that actually brings me to your before we get into Billy the Kid, because I want to talk about Billy the Kid. We were talking about that before, but Spicy Pulp. Spicy Pulp is another one of your properties, right? That I'm reading here, and I'm amazed by this. You're in issue 5, and every issue so far on Kickstarter has been funded within 24 hours of the launch date. What is your secret, Justin? How are you doing this? This is amazing.
I think it's a combination of a bunch of different things. I think it's the subject matter. I think it's definitely the artists that I work with. I mean, there's a visual representation. I mean, I have an idea in my head because the book is very specific to things that I'm nostalgic about, that I want people to have an appreciation of, that that was, for me, it was at a time when the things that inspired this book were things that took me out of my everyday life, that gave me an escape route on everything. So when I look at artists online and I see a certain style, and I'm like, oh, that reminds me of this moment where I had this feeling. And it wasn't necessarily that I wanted to go, because when I started in comics, I was like, I want to write the X-Men because I want to recreate for someone else the experience that I had. And in this case, it's sort of more about going to the next stage of what inspired me, trying to one up it, or trying to, I don't even know how to explain it completely. So with Spicy Pulp, it's all these different elements, especially escapism, because things have been very serious and dire and so dramatic lately. The idea of it not taking itself seriously. I mean, I take the work seriously, but I think that there's a certain joy to it. And comics to me should be fun. And there was definitely points in my career where it wasn't fun. And I was like, well, why isn't it fun? I mean, it's always been fun. It's always been fun to read comics, whatever kind of comic it is. So that's the sort of driving force behind Spicy Pulp. And then there's other things, other elements of it that visually, there's always attractive women. There's always a little bit of cheekiness or sexuality. I mean, it's for adults. It's a lot of stuff that I couldn't get away with doing in mainstream comics that sort of comes out in this. And I don't want to spoil any of it, and I don't know what the audience is like. So, but I do stuff where I'm like, I can't believe I just did that, and I kind of giggle about it. And it's just like it used to be so serious of like, you just can't get away with that. You can't use these words. You can't make sexual references. You can't insinuate certain things. I mean, at one point I was doing Jonah Hex, and I wanted to do a scene where Hex was hung over, and it was just sort of that like bottom of the barrel, dead tired thing. Hey, quiet. And and at one point somebody vomits, and a dog comes along and starts eating the vomit, and the editor freaked out. And I was like, of all the things to get upset, they were like, no, you can't have the dog eat vomit. And I was like, it's one part of the panel. Like Eduardo Riso could do that in the corner, and everyone would think it was adorable or brilliant. But they were like, no, you can't do it. And I was like, oh, it's so that the comics that I've been doing have had elements of that. There's a book I do called Standstill, where a publisher was interested in it, and they had read the first 2 issues, and they were like, whoa, we can't do this. This is too dark. And I was like, too dark? This is only issue 2. I'm like, wait till you get to issue 6. I haven't even gotten started yet on how dark this thing is. So I started realizing, I'm like, I got to find a way to make these books. And that's how Kickstarter is such a godsend about getting out there, and I think people appreciate it, and I see it. So whatever success happens with these books, I guess it's just my sort of blind dedication to not only the people who buy the books and support the books, but to just trying to do something that they're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Nice. So, what spawned the idea for Billy the Kid?
It was originally, I had this sort of, sometimes like I'll go to bed at night and I'll have like a little movie playing in my head. When you're dead tired and your body shuts down, your brain just kind of goes off on its own loopy thing. Right. And I had this idea where I wanted to do like an animated, like the stoner crowd after midnight wants to watch this. And I was like, because I wanted to go back to doing a Western, but I didn't want to do Jonah Hex again. And I thought, what's the complete opposite of doing a Jonah Hex thing? I was like, all right, there's a rabbit, and a gunslinging rabbit. And, the Western tropes are there. It's always like something happened to this character that makes them become this badass gunslinger. And I think, usually it's somebody stole their pickup truck or ran over their dog or killed their girlfriend. And I was trying to think of something even bigger and more cartoony. And I thought about tornadoes, and at one point there's this Pecos Bill character in popular American fiction who would ride a tornado, and I was like what if you like had to fight tornadoes? Like, what about the idea of there being these gods who are actual tornadoes that would just wipe out whole areas of Oklahoma or Texas and these towns, and that's kind of where it all started coming together. I wanted to do like a Afro samurai, super violent, bloody, stylized thing, very sarcastic, lots of cursing. And so I wrote this 8-page thing, which was like a little teaser trailer that I imagined in my head as an animation thing. And for years, Barry McLean Jr. had been saying, we got to work together. We got to work together. I'm like, his style is so bombastic and dynamic. I didn't want to just like make him draw people sitting in a room talking to each other. So eventually I was like, wait, these two things came together. I'm like, listen, I have this silly idea about Bugs Bunny and a spaghetti Western. And he was like, I want to draw it. So like he started going nuts with it. And that's where it started to go. And we did the trailer. And then I was like, all right, maybe I'll write issue 1. And then we kickstarted issue 1 and it got funded. But then I thought, I don't want to sit here and try and get people to fund 22, 24 pages every month. Because it doesn't, the platform for Kickstarter doesn't work like that for me. Like I want to give people like, that's like Spicy Pulp 60 pages, right, something big and chunky for them to hold on to. So we basically just hunkered down since 2017 and did the rest of the 5-issue miniseries. And like I said, I would just give Barry ideas of what happens in the issue. And it evolved. There's very much an attitude of what he has in there. He loves 80s horror movies, but it somehow worked. And that's how we ended up with this story. And it started out very much like what I said initially as this sort of splatterpunk cursing bunny thing. And it started to grow and evolve, and it started to have more depth, and we started to include martial arts stuff and Shaw Brothers movies and all kinds of other stuff that were in his drawing wheelhouse. Because it's nice to give an artist a reference and say, all right, remember that Jet Li Shaolin movie he did in the 1970s? Where he has this training sequence with bamboo, and he's like, yeah, I get that. I'm like, let's do our own version of that. That's not derivative, but like would be a modern interpretation of it, but with a rabbit. And he was like, yeah, let's do that. It's just an organic process, but it's fun. And that's really the only reason I make comics is so people have fun and get that energy from it.
Nice. So who is Billy?
He is essentially, there's a lot of Spider-Man in there because I like that scene over and over again, the idea of the hero being knocked down and having to get back up almost to the point where it's ridiculous. Right. That with Billy, it becomes ridiculous. It's like Spider-Man gets beat down, and then there's all these other elements that Stanley would put into it. But at one point, Billy has this mentor, and the mentor is waiting for him to die constantly throughout the comic. He's like, is he dead yet? God, I can't believe it. Like, how is he still alive? And why do you keep getting back up again? And Billy is just, he was like the weakest, scrawniest bunny in the whole, rabbits, there's lots of them. So like his whole family gets wiped out. There's like 700 of them. They get murdered by this tornado. So the weakless, sickless one who couldn't be out the day that the tornado came, who was stuck down in the burrow, finally comes out of his fever and he's like, I'm better, everybody. And he comes out and everyone's dead. And he's like, really? Like, he has to bury all of them. I'm like, he's burying his entire family on the same day. So it's that sort of dramatic, and I'm like, it's a talking animal comic, but I didn't want it to be just like, it's not a one-off joke. It's not a gimmick. I wanted it to be something where there was more to it. So here's Billy. His whole focus is figuring out a way to avenge his family and do right by other people because everything to him was so unjust. He was sick, and then when he finally got better, everything was taken away from him. So that's who he is, and he goes through this progression of becoming an epic hero. He has a mentor, and in these 5 issues, and what I wanted to do was self-contained issues, but also do it as an origin story, so that it wasn't like you had to buy 6,000 comics just to get the whole story. So that's who he is.
That's awesome. I love all of the tropes, and you had like this Sunslinger Wars, like you have like your own. It's a world you've created within these 130 pages. Tell us a little bit about that world.
There's all these different elements that started coming to me that I wanted to make it. Again, it's going away from trying not to do the same thing I did before. There was a lot of success with Jonah Hex. It's one of the proudest moments of my mainstream comics, and it's the most fun I had working at DC on anything. But I didn't want to do. You remember in the Image in the 90s, they would roll out their versions of their favorite characters. And I thought, I don't want to do my version of Jonah Hex. I want to take the stuff that I love about Westerns and the things that made me want to do that, and then apply it in a different way and mix all these different genres together, because I like mixing genres a lot. I like the fact that this is a horror comic, but it's also a Western comic, but it's also a talking animal comic. It's also a Kung Fu comic. And then there's this bigger sort of Jack Kirby thing that I wanted to do with these old gods in the Wild West. And you have all these people coming over, sort of the manifest destiny. So they're bringing over Christianity and God, and they're very religious. And that's Billy's father, who's a minister and a preacher. And these old gods are like, don't bring your new God here. We don't want any of that stuff. But he's like, my God's great. And he's like fully holding on to Christianity. And I remember when some people started reading the first issue, they were like, oh my God, this is a preachy thing. And halfway through the issue, they're like, no, this is not what it's about. I'm like, you can be spiritual, you can be religious, you can be all these different things, but it's interesting to put that in the context of a fantasy world where there are two things that are fighting with each other, the supernatural and the world that we know. So that's all those different things I like to throw together. It's sort of a like a gumbo of fiction, I guess.
No, it sounds fun.
Yeah. So talk about the character designs and the development. How much influence did you have on the look, and how much of it was just creative freedom on the artist?
I prefer to give the artist as much creative freedom as possible. And Barry was already off and running after our first conversation. Like, he's one of those people. He's like me. Like I used to get in trouble at DC. They'd be like, why have you already written 3 issues we haven't approved yet? I was like, but I was excited to do this thing. So Barry does that. He's like, I've got character designs, and there's like all these things coming into my inbox. And I'm like, okay. Like I in comics, I always feel, and I've seen it over and over again, where there's different formulas, and one of the formulas that mainstream superhero comics like to do is take hot name and hot name, put them together on hot character, and it's going to be magic automatically. And it doesn't always work that way. And for me, I'm always like, what is the right artist for what I'm writing? And like I said, with Barry early on, he wanted to work together. And I was like, I don't know. It's got to be the right thing that's going to make him want to do it. That's the number one thing. Like, if you had an artist or anybody who does a job that doesn't want to do it, you're never going to get anywhere near what you want out of them. So I always say, if you like this, then let's talk about it. If you don't like it, I have no problem. Just walk away. I'm not mad. I don't care. Like, I'd much rather you got up every day and were excited to work on something than we got up every day and we're like, oh, shit, I got to draw this rabbit again.
Right.
Because we had worked with, like, when we first did Jonah Hex, we had another artist in mind, and the artist was like, do I have to draw horses?
That's awesome.
I have this new movie called Star Wars, but are there any spaceships involved? Because I don't want to do anything with spaceships.
Right.
So it doesn't, so you got to be able to get to that point with people where they're very excited to be working on something. So with Barry, it was like he was already designing stuff in his head before the conversation was over. So I was like, just, that's, if I could do it, I would do it. So you do your thing, and that's where you went with it.
That's awesome.
That's outstanding. And so it's 130 pages.
There's probably more. I know he's sitting on. I don't know if I'm going to get him all into this thing, but every time I kind of peek at his Facebook page, I'm like, what is that in the background?
He's working on stuff.
He's doing something.
Great.
Nice. So, are you guys self-publishing? You pitched it to a publisher? What's going to happen with the project?
What I've been doing primarily now is just putting stuff out on Kickstarter and trying to build an audience that way. The thing with Spicy Pulp is I had talked to Heavy Metal, and they have the imprint virus. So they want to distribute the books after they're out. But the whole COVID thing and then Diamond and everything else has put kind of a hiccup on that. So they only have 2 issues of that they've only done digitally. So I just keep plowing ahead and doing everything. I just want to get the books out there. So I don't really think too far about the traditional structure of publishing, because I think it's going to keep changing, especially now after this. Yeah, after everything was locked down and Diamond was doing whatever Diamond was doing, and whatever's happening with all the mainstream publishers are gonna impact the smaller publishers. But for me, it's like, once again, this is an opportunity. I've always been about getting directly to the people who want the book. I mean, I would love that if I could sit down and do a Kickstarter and then roll out 8,000 copies to retailers across the country. I don't know how to do that. But I would do it in a heartbeat if I could, because I mean, that's the natural progression of things. I think that we should be able to, mean, everything is like, you look at what happened in music. Bands are directly connecting to their audience now instead of going through record labels and dealing with all that stuff. And I think that's something that should be happening in comics. But I don't want to exclude stores, because I want retailers. You know, I want that dynamic and that synergy to still be there. But for right now, and like I said, a lot of stuff that I want to do, publishers get kind of squeamish about. Or you know, I mean, talking animal comics are not exactly going to set the world on fire. They do well here and there, Mouse and We Three, and there's obviously Ninja Turtles and things like that. But that's not. I don't set out right now and say I'm going to try and correct, you know, the next licensing thing.
Right.
I just want to do the best comics possible and reach as many people as possible and grow an audience, rather than just dump something into the market and go, is it going to sell? Is it going to sell? And again, that's what I like about Kickstarter and crowdfunding, is that you're selling to the people who want to read comics, as opposed to just sort of habitual buyers or, and again, trying to get that stuff into retail would be great. So whatever happens. Like if a publisher comes along and says, I saw your Kickstarter, I love this book, we'd like to publish it, great. You know, but my first and foremost thing is to everyone who backs the Kickstarter, like, you know, those are the people that I am working for, right. As opposed to when it used to be when I worked for Marvel and DC, I would work for the editor, I'd hand in a script, I'd do revisions, and then 3 months later I'd get a comp box. And then 2 days later, I'd see a bunch of negative reviews online. So like this way, I know right away, if they like the book, they're backing it. If they don't like the book, they're not backing it. And it's right there. So I kind of like that.
We definitely have interest, because you have 185 people already on standby.
Yeah, I saw that. That's great.
That's pretty outstanding. So you definitely have that anticipation there, and you. So George and I were talking yesterday. Yeah, that first day he's gonna knock it out.
It's about to be 186, Justin, because I'm about to go in there and follow that page. It looks amazing. Looks great. No, that's awesome. The show actually is airing April 6th, which is the date of your launch. Oh, great. So we're very excited for you. Can't wait. It's going to go for 30 days, right? I'm assuming the campaign.
This one's going to be 30 days. I'm going to do one after this. It's going to be 15 but yeah. Okay. I'm really torn between these 30 and 15-day things. Because I'd like to do it without that lull in the middle. Yeah. Because like that's on everyone, but it slows down delivery of the books. It slows down the printing, everything else. So I'm wondering if there isn't a way to sort of find a happier medium in there. Because I don't know, I'm constantly thinking about ways to improve.
Well, with your track record, 15 days sounds a lot more reasonable, considering you've made everything on day one.
Well, definitely for something like Standstill, I think I can do that. But this I think needs to have the full breadth of like trying to get people to say, hey, this is like we were talking about. It's not exactly what they would expect.
Yeah. What are some of the perks before we let you go on the Kickstarter that you can tell us about? What are some of the things that people can get?
Like I said, Barry is constantly generating material. I have so many covers and so many illustrations, and then he's going to do pen and ink original covers. So there's going to be a limited number of the sketch things, but he's going to do pen and ink on them, his choice. And I've seen a couple of them; they're amazing. And they're one-of-a-kind pieces that will be unique to the Kickstarter. So obviously people are I feel like not enough people have had an appreciation of his work. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is probably going to be a bigger stage for him to do that. Hopefully, I hope, because, something like 900 people backing Spicy Pulp, I hope will at least check in. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of that's, I really want them to see his work because we've been doing this for a while, and I know, and it's one of those instances, and you can't always say this, but from issue 1 to issue 5, you can literally see this progression of not only just his line work, his panel breakdowns, his story structure, the dynamics of his camera angles, stuff that I geek out on. I don't know if
that's amazing. I know when you see that stuff as a writer, you're like, oh, dude, that looks great.
And, it's like enthusiasm is such a great thing, and I think comics need that. I don't want any more indifference to comics. I don't want to be like, oh, here's the latest crossover, here's this newest thing that they're doing, which we've seen before, recycled. So I'm excited to see how people respond to his work. And Slamet Mujiono from Indonesia, who's the colorist, you can see it too. He's starting to like, you can see him starting to fall into line with what Barry's doing. He's like, oh, this is exciting. Oh, that's exciting. And you start to see it atmospherically and in the story. So I just think if nothing else, it's going to be an entertaining 5 issues of an unusual book that you probably won't be able to get anywhere else because it is unusual. I mean, maybe, but I don't think about that. I just think about the people in front of me that want whatever it is we have, to produce, and obviously the best for the rest of the team. These are people, especially indie comics, I'm constantly like, who's going to scoop up, one of these artists that I work with, because they're, they're so talented.
Yeah.
I feel lucky. I got to hold on to them while I got them, and then, best of luck after that.
Yeah. The work is amazing. I mean, I love the design of Billy the Kid. Just that one piece with him with the 2 guns in his hand. I mean,
right,
and the colorist, whoever the colorist is, definitely complimented the art. So it looks enough to draw my attention, and I'm sure with your track record, you guys are gonna have an easy time with this one.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys having me on. That's great.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming, Justin. We appreciate you on the show. Where can people find you, social media wise, website? How can they?
jvgray.com is the website. I am on social media. I will say that I don't do much on Twitter. I was on Twitter, and then it started getting really weird and hostile, so I left it, and I switched it back on because primarily because I wanted to reach out to Jay Baruchel, who did the movie adaptation of a comic that I did with Jimmy Palmiotti that came out in 2019. But yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook. It's not going to be that exciting. I'm on Instagram if you want to see pictures of my cats, my dog. I don't know if that's going to enrich your life. But I'm on Kickstarter. You should definitely follow me on Kickstarter and jvgray.com. And there's a Spicy Pulp Facebook page that's not too hard to find because you can just type in Spicy Pulp. And there is a Billy the Kid Facebook page as well.
Nice.
It's just hard to constantly to do all the other things that I do, and then I'm going to block out X amount of time to be charming social media guy. It just doesn't always pan out. I'd rather make the good comics and then figure out how to do the other stuff afterwards.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Outstanding. Yeah, so we definitely wish you a lot of success. Yeah, you definitely have our support. I think you're going to be doing it's going to be great. I can't wait to see the finished product. I mean, just the art style alone, it looks fantastic. So thanks for being on the show.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so that was Justin Gray, and that's Billy the Kid. Looks amazing, and I'm a fan of art, and the art looks amazing. So I'm sure that the story is going to complement the art as well. So
yep. I know it says 130 pages, but when he was saying it's going to be over 130 pages of Wild West Kung Fu monster hunting. So
yeah,
cool.
and it's amazing to see that someone with that resume, still gets the butterflies. You know what I mean? So that, and we talked about, the fighter, before you get in the ring, if you don't have butterflies, then something's wrong. You're going to lose. And so it's like for him, like every project is like that next fight, that anticipation. What are people going to think? I hope it's good enough. And it's amazing. Even when you have that caliber of a resume and the fact that you have the notoriety, that you still have that in your mind. So that's pretty cool.
But the insight that he gave us on working for some of these companies, right? Because as a writer, you go in there, you submit something, they totally change it. They tell you to put it out. And then when it's out, you are taking all the punches because all of the negative reviews, because people didn't like it, go to you. And now you're the terrible writer who didn't know what you were doing.
You're ruined my character.
When, you know what I mean? When he wasn't the person, when it was the editor that told him, you got to do this.
How dare you?
The freedom that he has now writing his own stuff, he says, hey, listen, now it's on me. Whether they hate it or love it, it's on me. I know it's on me. So that's very interesting and very telling. A little insight into the industry.
Yes, cool. Yes. So this was another episode of Catch the Craze. It's a Kickstarter special with Justin Gray. And again, if you want to be on Catch the Craze, it's as simple as hitting us up and on any one of the social platforms, and we'll make it happen. And let's see, if you want to sponsor a show, it's as simple as reading this rate card right here. Bang. So 30-second spot, promote your endeavor. You have a campaign coming up. You have a Kickstarter coming up. Whatever it is, you have a party, a book signing gig. Hit us up. Promote your stuff ahead of time. Get on Catch the Craze. Get to the audience that you're targeting. And don't forget to subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. If you are going to be supporting Billy the Kid on Kickstarter, give us a thumbs up. For every person that supports, let us know that you're supporting Billy the Kid. And don't forget, April 29th is the launch date for Catch The Crazees on Kickstarter.
That's right.
With that said, I'm Sam the Crazy Man Vera.
I'm George the Dreamer Medina.
And we are